We're going to get started in Washington, where today the investigation into President Biden's handling of classified documents is set to be back in the spotlight. The former special counsel who investigated Biden, Robert Hur, is set to testify before a congressional committee.
Hur's special counsel report, which was released last month, said that President Biden, quote, willfully retained and shared highly classified information when he left his post as vice president. But Hur found there was not enough evidence to bring charges against him. The report also delivered a stinging assessment of the state of President Biden's memory, saying he was unable to recall details during his interviews with investigators. President Biden responded saying, quote, I'm well-meaning and I'm an elderly man and I know what the hell I am doing. We have full team coverage of today's testimony with NBC News congressional correspondent Julie Sirkin and NBC News Justice and Intelligence correspondent Ken Delaney. Thank you both. Julie, let's start with you. This is going to be the first time Robert Hur addresses the public since that report was released last month. What are we expecting to hear?
Yeah, and what a hot seat to be in. For the first time, he's going to address this publicly before the House Judiciary Committee. This is the same committee that has launched the impeachment investigation, the inquiry into the president. Jim Jordan, the chair of the committee, is certainly going to press Robert Hur specifically on what you just laid out in the intro, on Biden's mental fitness, on his acuity. That well-meaning elderly man phrase was, of course, taken directly from that 388-page report. And certainly Republicans are going to use this time to press him on that, why he included that in the report and why he didn't charge the president, because again, there is also a special counsel investigation, charges of which the former president is expected to face this week in Florida. But Democrats are expected to point to the very key differences between President Biden's case and between the case with the former president. This is something we know Democrats are going to push Hur on. Hur also included in his report why those two cases were so different. So certainly we expect both of those things to come up. But again, we don't expect Hur himself to stray too far outside of this report that he delivered last month, guys.
Ken, the White House has been critical of the characterization of the president and his memory in this report, which said, quote, openly, obviously, and blatantly violated Justice Department policies. Did Hur's characterization of Biden go beyond what we would normally see in a report like this?
No, because reports like this, Savannah, are almost always confidential. They're declination reports written in private, so they include a lot of derogatory information about the person who is not being charged because it's the result of an investigation. Look, we have Rob Hur's opening statement now, and in that opening statement, he defends his characterizations of President Biden's memory in that 5-hour interview because he says it was crucial. Biden's memory and his mental state was crucial to Rob Hur's decision not to charge him, despite significant evidence that President Biden had willfully retained classified information, including a tape recording where he said, I found all the classified material. He was referring to a house in Virginia back in 2017. And so Hur said it was entirely proper to do that. He needed to do that, in fact, to justify to his boss, the Attorney General, why he wasn't charging Mr. Biden, because this is a crime of willfulness. You have to know that you're retaining classified information. And President Biden told Rob Hur in the interview that he didn't remember ever saying that on tape or finding those classified documents back in 2017.
Ken, you mentioned the Attorney General, Merrick Garland. He made the decision to have former special counsel Robert Hur handle this documents investigation. What is the Justice Department saying about the report's characterization of the president?
Well, so the Justice Department, when President Biden's lawyers objected, before the report came out, they objected to this language. The Justice Department referred it to the top career official at DOJ. In other words, the top person who is not appointed by the president. And that person looked at it, his name is Bradley Winsheimer, and said, this is entirely proper. I'm sorry, Mr. Biden and your lawyers, but this characterization of Mr. Biden's memory in this report was necessary to explain the decision not to charge him. It was not gratuitous. It was not outside the bounds of DOJ policy. And Merrick Garland and his people, while not involved in that decision, they tend to agree. And they say that Democrats who say they should have edited that out or somehow, changed the report are misunderstanding what a scandal that would have been. That would have looked like political interference from their point of view, guys.
Julie, where do we go from here? Does today's hearing mark kind of like the unofficial end of this investigation, or will we keep hearing about this?
Well, remember, this isn't happening in a vacuum. The Republicans have been investigating the president. They've been pursuing this impeachment inquiry that is growing less and less popular by the week. And of course, this Hur report, the special counsel report, is not necessarily the basis by which their investigation is continuing here, but it's certainly something they're going to use as a linchpin to keep it going because, again, they have been unable to provide any evidence of any wrongdoing, any foreign interference that they claim the president had with his son, with his friends, with his brother. And so certainly this special counsel report is a moment that they're going to try to use and one they're trying to milk ahead of the election. Again, as I mentioned, you also have the former president facing charges this week in Florida for his handling of the special counsel special documents case, classified documents case, excuse me. And certainly this is a moment in which Republicans are going to try to use, they're going to try to capitalize. And again, they are still demanding documents and the full transcript of the interview and the video portion of the interview as well. So we anticipate that after today, they will continue on.
All right, Julie Sirkin and Ken Delaney with a preview of today's testimony. Thank you both.
Now let's get to the race for the White House. Today is primary day in several states as former President Trump looks to officially lock up the Republican nomination for a third straight time.
Trump is less than 150 delegates from clinching the nomination. Today we're going to see nominating contests in Georgia, Hawaii, Mississippi, and Washington State. And those states could put him over the top. The former president became the presumptive nominee after a strong showing last week on Super Tuesday, forcing Nikki Haley to drop out of the race.
NBC News correspondent Dasha Burns joins us with the very latest. Dasha, good morning. So we're not really expecting to see much drama today at the polls, but how likely is it that Trump does officially clinch the GOP nomination tonight, reach that threshold?
Hey guys, good morning. So the magic number is 1,215. That's how many delegates he needs to officially become the nominee. Right now, he has 1,076. So a little early morning math for you here. He needs 139 more. There are 161 up for grabs tonight. So there's a high possibility he does get there tonight. But of course, it ain't over until our decision desk makes the call.
Dasha tackling math early in the morning. We appreciate that. So the Trump campaign is pretty much taking over the Republican National Committee. At least 4 senior staffers were fired yesterday, according to 2 sources familiar with the matter. What's going on here? What can you tell us about this?
Yeah, at least 4 fired, potentially as many as 60 employees impacted. So the RNC met in Houston last week to install a new pair of leaders selected specifically by the former president, Chairman Michael Whatley, who previously led the North Carolina Republican Party. And, of course, there's been a lot of talk about this, former President Trump's daughter-in-law, Laura Trump, as co-chair. And Chris LaCivita, who's essentially a Trump co-campaign manager, stepped into the role of chief operating officer at the RNC. So this is a full-on remaking of the RNC in Trump's image. There's going to be, guys, very little daylight now between the Trump campaign and the Republican National Committee.
Dasha, we also have some news involving one of the legal cases with the former president we want to ask you about. So his attorneys have asked the judge presiding over the New York hush money case to delay this trial until after the Supreme Court issues that ruling on presidential immunity. What's the Trump team arguing here, and what do we think so far?
Right. So this is kind of a long shot 11th hour bid here, and it came as a bit of a surprise because it came after the deadline for pretrial motions had passed. But basically, the Trump team is arguing that some of the evidence that'll be used against him in this case pertains to, quote, official acts that should be kept out of trial. Because remember, his presidential immunity argument pertains to official acts he took as president. So his lawyers argue that they should be immune from prosecution. They specifically reference certain tweets and public comments from 2018 that he made about Michael Cohen and some business records that Trump signed off on relating to those hush money payments. So his lawyers are asking for the trial to be delayed until after the Supreme Court issues its ruling on the scope of presidential immunity. Arguments in that case are scheduled for April 25th.
And then one more case to talk about. Trump expected to attend a hearing on Thursday in the federal criminal case involving his handling of classified documents. That's the case in Florida. His attorneys want to get that one thrown out. What can we expect there?
Yeah, oh my gosh, you're reminding me it's going to be a really busy week, Joe. Judge Cannon said that Thursday's hearing is expected to take all day. Trump's legal team and prosecutors from Special Counsel Jack Smith's office are expected to argue their positions on whether some or all of the charges against Trump should be thrown out because of the Presidential Records Act before the case actually goes to trial. The special counsel, though, has urged Cannon to reject Trump's claims that that his presidential records can, quote, be transformed into personal records upon being removed from the White House, guys.
All right, Dasha Burns, thank you so much.
New Jersey Democratic Senator Bob Menendez and his wife have pleaded not guilty to new federal obstruction charges.
The two new charges brought by prosecutors relate to alleged attempts by Menendez and his wife, Nadine, to cover up illegal bribes. These charges bring the total number of federal charges against the senator to 18. The couple is accused of taking bribes of gold bars, cash, and a luxury car in return for the senator's help with projects pursued by 3 New Jersey businessmen. Menendez has denied any wrongdoing and called the indictment a, quote, flagrant abuse of power. That trial is set to begin in May.
An aid ship carrying 200 tons of food for Gaza's starving population has finally set sail from Cyprus.
Yeah, the ship had been delayed and could take up to 2 days to arrive. The UN says Gaza is on the brink of famine. Relief organizations are resorting to airdrops and now sea transport to deliver aid amid accusations from the UN and aid agencies that Israel is blocking aid trucks from getting into the besieged enclave. Speaking yesterday, the UN Secretary General again urged Israel to allow more life-saving aid into Gaza.
My strongest appeal today is to honor the spirit of Ramadan by silencing the guns and removing all obstacles to ensure the delivery of life-saving aid at the speed and massive scale required. International humanitarian law lies in tatters, and the threatened Israeli assault on Rafah could plummet the people of Gaza into an even deeper circle of hell.
NBC News International correspondent Raf Sanchez joins us now from Tel Aviv. So, Raf, this aid ship finally on its way to Gaza. Clearly, though, it's going to take some time to actually get there. So what can you tell us about this shipment? Any other efforts to get aid there faster?
So, Joe, this is a Spanish ship. It's called the Open Arms. It's a charity vessel. It finally set sail from Cyprus today for what, as you said, is going to be a painfully slow voyage to Gaza. This ship traveling about 3 miles an hour, partly because you have the ship, but then behind it you have this enormous barge that is carrying a lot of the food, much of it supplied by the U.S. charity World Central Kitchen. It is going to take about 3 days before it reaches the coast of Gaza, and it remains very unclear what happens then. How do you actually get the food off of this ship onto the coast and get it safely distributed to people who need it? In terms of alternative routes, the Israeli government has said it is opening a new ground crossing. This will be near Kibbutz Be'eri, one of the kibbutzim overrun by Hamas on October 7th. That will get food directly into northern Gaza, where it is most badly needed. The timings on when that crossing is going to be open remain unclear. And then finally, there is that longer-term U.S. effort to build a temporary pier off the coast of Gaza to really ramp up humanitarian aid. But U.S. officials tell NBC News that could take at least 2 months.
Ralph, we know Ramadan started yesterday. Many Palestinian Muslims will be heading to the Al-Aqsa Mosque that's in Jerusalem, and it's one of the holiest Islamic sites. But we do understand that Israel is imposing restrictions on Palestinian visitors. You told us a little bit about this yesterday, but give us the latest about that and the regional reaction to those decisions.
Yeah, so we're getting a broader sense of these restrictions now. For Palestinians coming from the occupied West Bank, it is a very limited group of people who are going to go to the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Men over the age of 50, women over the age of 50, and children under the age of 10. So put that differently, if you're a Palestinian in the West Bank and you are between the ages of 10 and 50, you are not going to be allowed to go to this holy site during the month of Ramadan. For Palestinians with Israeli citizenship, there are no formal restrictions by age. We saw when we were in Jerusalem yesterday that young men were having trouble getting into the mosque. They were being turned away at certain points by Israeli forces. And the Israeli government says it reserves the right to restrict the numbers going up to the mosque for safety reasons. You can fit about 300,000 people up there, but then you have the potential for crushes, for stampedes, for accidents. The Israeli government says it's not going to allow that. Guys.
Raf, we also talked yesterday about President Biden's comments on Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu, saying that he was hurting Israel more than helping it. Well, now the U.S.'s own annual intelligence assessment says Netanyahu's viability as a leader might be in jeopardy. What are we learning here?
Yeah, Joe, this was really interesting. This is some political analysis inside of this annual unclassified threat assessment that the U.S. Intelligence community releases to Congress. And it basically said Netanyahu's political prospects are bleak. And that is an assessment that is backed up by the polls here. A small minority of Israelis want Netanyahu to continue in office on the other side of this war. A majority of Israelis want elections early for a new government. And this analysis also suggested that you could see a more moderate Israeli government replacing this far-right current government under Netanyahu. That also appears to be backed up by polls here, which suggest that Benny Gantz, who's the leader of one of the centrist parties that's actually joined the war cabinet, is the favorite to be Israel's next prime minister. Guys.
All right, Raf, thank you so much.
This morning, police are aware of the death of a former Boeing employee-turned-whistleblower. 62-year-old John Barnett was found dead on Friday in what the Charleston County Coroner's Office described as an apparent self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Now, authorities have ruled out foul play. Barnett worked for Boeing for 32 years as a quality manager before retiring in 2017. Since his retirement, he's been outspoken about safety concerns at the company. He filed a whistleblower complaint against Boeing in 2017, raising concerns about the company's production standards. He also filed a retaliation lawsuit against Boeing that was set for trial this June. His death comes amid a series of recent dangerous incidents involving Boeing planes. The Justice Department just launched a criminal investigation into the company following that mid-air blowout of a 737 MAX 9 plane in January.
Let's get you over to weather. There's a new storm bringing winter alerts to the Northwest this morning.
You're all just Angie Lastman's tracking the latest for us. Hey, Angie, good morning.
Hey there, guys. Good morning to you. You got that right. We've got another storm out west that's going to bring us some rain, some snow, and then eventually down the line we could be seeing some severe storms from this. Let's start with what's happening right now. There's your satellite and radar. You can see there's some snow falling across portions of the Rockies. We've got some rain working through San Francisco, Seattle. It's a soggy morning in some of those spots, and we've got winter alerts up for basically those same regions. You can see the winter storm watches in blue across the Rockies. We've got winter weather advisories and winter storm warnings as well. These are going to stay in effect here for the next day or so, and you can see why. The system will work a little farther to the east. It'll bring the potential for some more snow through that region as the day goes on, but also across parts of the Rockies, and then it really ramps up for tomorrow. And not only do we see additional snow for, again, the Rockies, but we'll also see the potential for some of these stronger storms to develop in the midsection of the country. We're going to see also heavy rain be a possibility with this. But when it comes to the stronger storms, the hail, the tornadoes, those are going to all be on the table. I'll show you that here closer in a moment. When we look at the snowfall totals, anywhere from 6 inches to about a foot, maybe a foot and a half is possible, especially as you get up into those higher elevations. But this is going to be some heavy, wet snow accompanied by some strong wind gusts. That means travel likely going to be difficult in this region through the next couple of days. This goes through Thursday. So we'll be dealing with, of course, the snow falling in that region here, at least for the next 2 days. Now, the severe weather that I mentioned, this is tomorrow. This is a look at the bullseye for the greatest chance that we could see some of those stronger storms developing. It looks like Kansas City to Concordia in that bullseye. We'll see the potential. The largest potential is going to be for hail, 2 inches in size or higher. That's hen egg size. But we could also see some of those strong wind gusts, 60 miles per hour or greater, and we're not going to rule out a couple of tornadoes. As we look ahead to Thursday, another day of severe threat. And this time we've got 18 million people at risk of this. Some strong wind gusts. That looks like what we'll be watching for the greatest potential to see. But hail and, of course, tornadoes not out of the question then either. We've got Dallas, Little Rock, Springfield, Des Moines, all included in that. And this system will continue working to the east here as the days go on. One other note today, we do have low humidity and some strong winds across parts of the southern plains. So that fire weather that we've talked a lot about over the past couple of weeks, it continues to be an issue. We'll have an elevated risk of that here from Wichita to Amarillo and down through El Paso here as we get through the day today, guys. Lots going on. We've also got some spring-like temperatures that we're going to track here through the next couple of days across parts of the country. And the roller coaster ride continues.
Yeah. I'm going to enjoy the next few days here in the Northeast.
60s? I know. Break out the shorts and T-shirt.
And I'm impressed by your bird egg size knowledge. Hen egg size.
2
Very
inches.
specific. I love it. Thanks, Angie.
Thanks for watching. Stay updated about breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or follow us on social media.